You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Coming up, we'll recap Week 7, get you set for Week number 8. As a matter of fact, we will talk about the Houston Cougars, who are somewhat surprisingly atop the AAC standings, just by a half game over the Cincinnati Bearcats. They play East Carolina this week. We will talk to our guys from the Scott Holman podcast about that game and the Cougs season so far. That's coming up in just a little bit. Cincinnati now ranked number 2 in the country as they improved to 6-0 overall, 2-0 in league play with an impressive win. They raced out to a 35-0 lead in the second quarter against UCF on their way to a 56-21 victory. That's their 24th consecutive win on their home turf. Running back Jerome Ford led the way with 4 rushing touchdowns as part of a 189-yard day, while quarterback Desmond Ridder was 13-23 for 140 yards and a touchdown. Seth Hennigan completed 8 of 11 for 215 and 2 touchdowns as Memphis scored on 5 of its first 6 drives to hold a 3-game slide and defeat Navy 35-17 on Thursday night. Calvin Austin III had another big play, sprinting 69 yards to score a reverse and gave Memphis a 14-7 lead they would not relinquish. One play after Navy had a 21-play drive to tie the game at 7. That's midshipman football right there in a capsule. And most plays for any drive by any team at the FBS level this season. Tigers now 1-2 in conference, 4-3 overall. Navy drops to 1-5 overall, 1-3 in conference. And Shamari Brooks scored on a 3-yard run with 47 seconds left, lifting Tulsa to a 32-31 win over South Florida. The Golden Hurricane are 2-1 in conference, 3-4 overall. The Bulls are 0-2 in conference and 1-5 overall. Looking at this week's slate of games, on Thursday, Tulane is at SMU. That'll be a 7:30 kick on ESPN. ESPN leads the all-time series 14-13, and they won last year's game in a close one, 37-34. On Friday night, Memphis at UCF, the annual space game for the night, 7:30 p.m. on ESPN2. And of course, you know UCF leads the all-time series 13-2, but Memphis broke a 13-game winning streak by the Knights with a 50-49 win coming from behind last year. On Saturday, Cincinnati at Navy, noon kickoff on ESPN2. Navy leads the all-time series 3-1. Cincinnati won their last meeting back in 2018 as they blanked the Middies 42-0. Temple at South Florida, that's a noon game on ESPN+. Temple leads the all-time series 5-2. And they won the last year's game by a 39-37 score. Coming up next, we'll talk about the Houston Cougars as they host East Carolina this week. Our guys from the Scott and Holman podcast will be here to discuss that when the AAC report continues right after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
The Houston Cougars having a good season in conference in the AAC. We're about to talk about that and their game upcoming this Saturday with East Carolina. As always, our pleasure to welcome from the Scott Holman podcast. Dustin doing a solo effort while Sam is on assignment is how we're gonna call that. Dustin, thanks for being here.
Yeah, always good to chat with you, Jeff.
All right, so the Houston Cougars 5-1 in the year, 3-0 in conference, and actually in first place because they've got a game up on Cincinnati in the schedule. So as you look at things where they are right now, are you cautiously optimistic on the outcome of the season?
Yeah, I think cautiously optimistic is probably a good way to put it. It's been encouraging what we've seen from the Cougars the last 5 games since a rather disappointing opener against Texas Tech. And they've faced 5 teams that, frankly, they probably should have beaten based on talent level, and they've pretty much taken care of business. And they've it's been occasionally a little bit tight, but for the most part they've taken care of business in those games. So it's kind of funny because in a way it's par for the course from what we've seen from Dana Holgorsen so far, even though the U of H record is considerably better this year than his first 2 years. But basically his MO has been that, when he's faced a really good team, they've lost. They haven't won any good games. They haven't really beaten any quote unquote good teams under Dana Holgorsen yet. But when he's faced everybody else, with the exception of Hawaii in the bowl game, he's won almost all essentially all of those games, which is what I think makes him, clearly a superior coach to Major Applewhite. As a quick tangent, is that Major Applewhite lost a bunch of those games against bad teams. So we are at least beating bad teams now, and that is an encouraging step in the right direction. But the reason that I can only say cautiously optimistic at 5-1 is that we still have yet to beat a good team, and as this team thinks about transitioning to the Big 12 in a couple of years, that I think needs to be the level that we're thinking at, is how are we getting to become a competitive Big 12 team. The only team that we've played this year that's been Big 12 quality is obviously the Big 12 team that is Texas Tech, and we lost that game in a pseudo home game, and that was not a top half of the Big 12 type of team. So despite the 5-1 record, I think plenty still to prove, and they'll get that if they can take care of business against East Carolina this weekend, hopefully then they'll get a huge test against SMU the week after that. And obviously the result of that game, I think, is going to go a long way to telling us exactly how optimistic we should be about the program at the moment.
Yeah, you look at, blowout wins over Rice and Grambling State, a little tough matchup with Navy, but Navy, can force those kind of games upon you. And victories over Tulsa and Tulane. And, those are 2 teams that we were expecting to be better off than they are this year, too. So.
Yeah, it looked like an easy schedule on paper this year, not getting Cincinnati or UCF out of the in conference play. Finally, rotating those 2 teams away after taking a couple of losses during the last rotation, the last 2 years under Dana Holgorsen, and also in the non-conference as well, going from Oklahoma to Texas Tech, Rice, Grambling, and UConn, which is going to be one of the especially outside of the Texas Tech game, will be one of the easier non-conference schedules probably anybody in the country is playing this year. So you should take care of those games, and it's been encouraging, like I said, but we'll definitely the big tests still to come.
Yeah, and speaking of that big test, of course, you got East Carolina this weekend, which is an improving team. But any fears of looking past them to the SMU matchup?
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely a team that has shown the capacity to play really well at times. They've really struggled at times as well. They're one of the more all over the map teams. But when you face a team like that, that's always the frightening thing. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Houston wins by 28 points or something on Saturday. But I wouldn't be surprised if East Carolina wins as well, just because it feels like the Pirates have a high capacity for being really good, really bad from one quarter to the next or one game to the next. But they beat a pretty good Marshall team on the road. They played South Carolina, not that they're great this year, but they played South Carolina really close, should have won that game. And they've been really good at forcing turnovers. And that's been one of the hallmarks of Houston playing well the last 5 weeks, is the fact that they have only committed 2 team turnovers over those 5 games. Something that's been a bit of a bugaboo the last couple of years. And ECU is a team that can force them into some of those old bad habits. So I am concerned about that. And just, that Holton Ahlers has shown quite the boomer bust proposition himself at the quarterback position. Doesn't look great great one week and looks like an all conference candidate the next week. So hopefully what has been a pretty good U of H defense will be able to get some pressure on them and hopefully not let them get too wild. But yeah, they're absolutely a team that until the final whistle blows on Saturday, I'll be concerned about.
Yeah, I know last time you and Sam were on, you were talking about, Clayton Tune, and you wanted to see the reduction in turnovers. And as you said, the reduction in turnovers is equating to the success they're having on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people have, when we have on the podcast, they go, oh, he's got six interceptions this year. That's not real good, right? You go, okay, well, sure. But 4 of those were in a pretty disastrous opener. And if you're willing to kind of burn the tape in the other Texas Tech opener, he threw 1 in the Grambling game when he had a bad hammy and shouldn't have even been in, and shouldn't have even been in that game. But the 4 FBS games since Texas Tech, he's thrown 1 interception and only makes maybe 1 or 2 kind of questionable throws a game, and otherwise just seems very within himself and making the plays that the coaching staff wants him to make. And he's been doing a lot of that with a hamstring that hasn't been 100%. And the word is that he kind of finally, with the off week, feels closer to 100% on that hammy. The coaching staff has been telling him, not to run under any circumstances the last few weeks, even though he's a quarterback that can make a lot of good plays with his legs. So going forward, if he is able to keep that hammy healthy, and show the restraint that we've seen in the passing game, which has been really exciting, and then also add to that what we've always known that he can do, which is make plays with his legs, then I think he's got even a higher ceiling than what we've seen so far.
What are some of the other keys you think that have contributed to this 5-game winning streak?
I think a huge factor has been health of the offensive line. I don't know if I mentioned this on your pod before, but over Dana Holgerson's first 2 seasons, 20 games, only 3 times did he run out the same 5 starting offensive linemen in consecutive games, and never 3 games in a row, which is just absolutely bonkers. The level of injuries, and so that's been a huge factor. If your offensive line isn't good, it doesn't matter how good your skill players are. We've said this on our podcast before. It's like having a really nice car, but you don't have the keys to it, or the engine isn't there, or something like that. If you don't have the offensive line, it makes everything else not work and be kind of irrelevant. And this year, Houston has had extremely good health. They haven't had any. They've had a little bit, guys get dinged up a little bit here and there, but for the most part, they're starting the same 5 guys each game. They added a grad transfer, Cody Russi from Louisiana Tech, a guy who was an all Conference USA first team as a senior at La Tech, 4-year starter there. And then came over as a grad transfer with his extra year. He's really given the Cougars some oomph in the middle of the offensive line, and that there was much needed, frankly, at that spot on the line. And then a couple of young tackles have been playing up to expectations. So the offensive line, it's been a little bit inconsistent. It still hasn't been just like a dream offensive line. It's not the best offensive line of the conference. It might not be one of the top 2 or 3, but it's at least been decent enough that the offense can actually run, which hasn't really been the case much of the first 2 years under Dana Holgerson. So that is just given the offense of like I said, at least the offense has the potential to do good things now, whereas that wasn't there before. And then the other factor, it's been the other side of the ball in the trenches. Houston has been what looked like a really good, talented, deep defensive line heading into the season has been everything we could want it to be and more. The Cougars have got 8 or 9 guys that they're going to rotate throughout the game on the defensive line, and all of them have shown the ability to get to the quarterback and make negative plays. So the Cougars have gotten a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They just sacked Tulane 8 times. Michael Pratt had been sacked 8 times, and I think every FBS game, or every game that Tulane had in the first 5 or 6 games prior to the U of H game, and Houston doubled his sack total in a single game. And it was like 7 different guys that had the 8 sacks. So you can't focus in on one guy because there's been so many of them that have played so well. So Houston has just really been winning games defensively in the trenches, and been, at least for the most part, able to hold defenses at bay on the other line of the trenches. So it's definitely been the line play that's been, I would say, the biggest difference for Houston this year.
I know last time you guys were on too, we talked about this being the 3rd year for Dana Holgerson, and typically when you had the program change hands, that 3rd season is kind of a key one that you really want to see the wheels go in motion forward, and you feel like you're seeing that, right?
Yeah, I think so, and it's that's the case with every coach, where you want to see that the proof of concept, so to speak, in year 3, and that's probably been something that was doubly important for a coach like Dana Holgerson, who is the highest paid coach in the G5, is I think 33rd. The list came out 33rd highest paid coach anywhere in the country. is going to be one of the higher paid coaches in the Big 12 in a couple of years of his contract. If he's still around and his contract is still the same. So you have those expectations, and he's also taken a pretty good punt on the first 2 years with doing the great redshirt experiment in 2019. And then just COVID kind of blowing up Houston's season even more so than it did everybody else's last year. And a lot of, more injuries not going their way. So this has been very much, this is all right, let's see the proof of concept year for him this year. And we kind of said that the famous quote for U of H is, we fire coaches at 8-4. This is exactly the kind of schedule Major Applewhite was going 8-4 against that we fired him for, because that's just, Houston has the resources that when they're facing a schedule as uninspiring as this year's schedule, you should be winning 9 or 10 games at a program like Houston that's invested as much as they have in the football program. So definitely, yeah, it's you would have to be. I would say that the progress seems to be there, but. The back half of the year still, maybe we could lose on Saturday and then get, blown out by SMU, and I'll be feeling very differently about the situation. So still, I think lots to prove. You gotta finally beat someone like SMU, actually show that you can beat a good team. And at that point, I would think we would be able to say, yes, not only is Dana Holgorsen cooled off the warm seat that he had probably coming into this year, but has even, earned some real buy-in from the fan base. Yeah.
And then, of course, looking ahead to that SMU game, provided everything goes according to plan this week, a game against a team that's currently ranked 21, a victory over them probably gets Houston some potential consideration of being ranked, I would think. And then, down the road, if they can provide a good finish, could possibly get a shot at Cincinnati in the title game.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Houston takes care of business against East Carolina and then beats SMU, they would be easily in the driver's seat at that point for the second spot in the conference title game. The only other team, the 3 undefeated teams in conference play is Houston, Cincinnati, and SMU at the moment. So if you get a win over SMU, not only get a game ahead of them in the standings at that point, but also have the tiebreaker over them from having beaten them. I don't see any other team in this conference that's going to to really run up the standings and win out their schedule and really make a push. And I think, Houston at that point, if they beat both of those teams, they shouldn't end with more than one loss at the absolute worst in conference play, because they've got teams like Temple and USF still on the back of their schedule, some teams that should be some easy wins for them. So if they are able to take care of the next 2 weeks, yeah, I think it would take a choke job at that point for Houston to not end up facing Cincinnati in the title game, which is, would be it'd be terrifying, because Cincinnati is terrifying, and some part of me doesn't want to, is a little bit concerned about watching my team face them, because they've been destroying people, and I think there's a fair to middling chance they would do that to Houston as well. But just to earn a spot in the AAC title game, and I don't think any fans really, if you put a lot of guns to heads of Houston fans before the season, I don't think a lot of us would have been saying, yeah, we're going to the conference title game this year. So that would be a huge endorsement of what this staff has done, even if maybe the title game itself wouldn't be the prettiest.
Yes, and of course, I got a good view of what Cincinnati can do as they dismantled UCF really from the get-go in that ball game. And, since you guys talk a lot about the conference as well, give me your take on Cincinnati. They're number 2 now in the country. And now, because everybody is saying, well, their schedule's not that great, so they're going to have to get style points, and they're getting their style points.
Yeah, that seemed like the big talking point after they beat Notre Dame was like, okay, but if they don't just blow everybody out in conference play all year, then they're going to get immediately dropped. And Cincinnati's like, all right, I take that as a challenge. We are going to just absolutely run laps around everybody and make sure that there's absolutely no excuse. And yeah, it's tantalizing to think about. And it's as someone who has just been dying to see a non Power 5 team get to the playoff, it would be a beautiful second to last year as a member of a non-Power 5 conference to see someone do it. And I'm definitely that's what would be so funny about going if U of H were to make the AAC title game, is you'd be going up against this incredible team in Cincinnati, and part of me is just like, I'm dying to see Cincinnati force the committee's hand, and I so badly don't want them to lose a game and then get the committee off the hook from having to make a decision about what to do with a team like that. So they have been terrifying to just watch on tape. They're so good on both sides of the ball, and it's just one of those games where even I think Houston is one of the maybe 2 or 3 teams in the conference that has the overall talent level that if everything goes right and Cincinnati doesn't play their best day and you show up with their A game, then maybe you're going to make it a close game of it type of deal. But it's probably going to take something like that to get that win. So they are a scary, scary team, and that's really exciting. I think that they deserve a chance. The fact that they are that scary, they've got to win like at Notre Dame that they do have, and being an Indiana team that's not nothing before just absolutely running roughshod over the American Athletic Conference, they should get in. And I just. Yeah, and unless they face U of H in the conference championship game, in which case, of course, I'll have to rate for the Cougars. I'll just, definitely keeping my fingers crossed for Cincinnati.
Yeah, but my thought process on them, even if they run the table, I still have doubts they get in. I just do not see the committee wavering in any way, shape, or form. Alabama could still lose another game, and they'll still get in the Final Four.
Yeah, so we were actually just discussing this on our last podcast, and I think the scenario that scares me is that Alabama wins out and then beats Georgia in the SEC title game, because if they both have one loss, 1,000% chance both of those teams are going to the playoff. But I don't know. I think if Georgia wins out and then beats Alabama in the SEC title game, if Alabama has 2 losses and one of them is to an A&M team that's not very good, I don't know. I think it would be really, really, really. I don't know. And again, would have never lost money up until this point, just doubting the playoff committee's capacity to just stare you in the face and tell you that whatever, this team is better than that team, and no, we're not even considering other options. But I said on our podcast the other day, I said I think that if the committee puts a 2-loss Alabama in over an undefeated Cincinnati, I think the ensuing crap storm would make the 2017 UCF discourse look like a polite conversation between two fancy people over tea. Like it would be so toxic to that sport as a whole if the committee were to do that. And I can't really, as someone who just has had no faith in that institution, it is weird that I have some small amount of belief that I think that if we all just manifest for Georgia to beat Alabama in the SEC title game, I think there's a decent chance that they would feel the public pressure to just have to put him in. And again, worst case scenario, if Cincinnati runs the table and then they don't get put in, at least you get to sit there and laugh and watch the college football world just burn, as people would discuss that until the end of time. So it'll be entertaining, I guess, one way or the other for sure.
Yeah, I think I would read my matches to that too. That's for darn sure. So, East Carolina on Saturday, and please, if you will, shameless plugs for what you and Sam are doing with your podcast and all your endeavors.
Yeah, so we just put out our preview podcast for the East Carolina game. Talked to a couple of ECU guys and got their take, and then gave our analysis. And as always, we talk about every game in the American, every game in the Big 12, as we're looking both to our current conference and to our future conference. So that's part of we had like some crazy 90-minute mega episode. I don't even remember what it ended up as, but a lot of content there. So anywhere that you get your podcasts, you can search the Scott and Holman podcast, and it's podcast PAWDCAST. The only thing we like as much as U of H athletics is terrible puns, so we had to have a cat paw pun in there. Scott Holman podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and then we are just prolific overusers of Twitter. So if you like the Twitters, follow us on Twitter at SH Podcast with the same podcast spelling.
Outstanding, Dustin. As always, great to have you on the show, and best wishes to you guys going down the road.
I appreciate that. Always enjoy talking to you, Jeff.
East Carolina, Houston, noon kickoff on ESPNU. The all-time series knotted up at 7 games apiece. The Cougs won the last meeting back in 2018 by a 42-20 score. The offensive player of the week on the gridiron, Jerome Ford of Cincinnati. We talked about his 189 yards and 4 touchdowns in Cincinnati's romp over UCF. The defensive player of the week, Justin Wright of Tulsa. Team-high 7 tackles, included 2.5 sacks. In their victory over South Florida. The special teams player of the week is Brian Batty of South Florida, the 9th American Athletic Conference player in league history to register a 100-yard kickoff return as he took that second quarter kick from end zone to end zone in the defeat they suffered at the hands of Tulsa. When we come back, we'll take a look at other news and notes from around the AAC. You're listening to the AAC Report only on the Nightline Sports Network.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up the menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
Checking sports elsewhere around the AAC. Women's soccer, South Florida traveled to Memphis and won in double overtime, 1-0. They take over first place in the American standing. The Bulls are 13 points with 2 matches remaining. Memphis a point behind, but they have 3 matches left. With less than 2 weeks left in the regular season, all 9 teams are still in contention to host at least a first-round match in the AAC Women's Soccer Championship. The Offensive Player of the Week is Haley Gutowski of Temple, scored 3 goals in a 2-0 week for the Owls last week. Got both of them in a 2-1 win over Houston, and then added a goal in a 2-1 non-conference win over LIU. The Defensive Player of the Week, Vivian Bissett of South Florida, leading the Bulls defense in a 1-0 shutout on the road at Memphis, playing in all 105 minutes. The Goalkeeper of the Week, Sydney Martinez of South Florida, as she earned that shutout in the double overtime victory, recording 6 saves. And the Rookie of the Week, once again, Haley McWhirter, her 3rd consecutive ROW honor, scored a goal and recorded assist in East Carolina's 2-2 draw with Tulsa on Sunday. In men's soccer, UCF picked up its 2nd top 25 win in conference play in as many matches, getting a big 2-1 road win at number 24 SMU to take over the top spot in the American, and the Knights responded from an early deficit and dominated the run of play with a 19-11 shots advantage to defeat the Mustangs. Number 8 Tulsa kept pace with the Knights in the race for the conference regular season championship, as they also go to 5-1 and 0 in league play in their 2-1 home victory over Temple. The Golden Hurricane controlled the match by way of a 15-4 advantage in shots, 8-3 in shots on frame, and a 7-1 edge in corner kicks. The Offensive Player of the Week is Cheyenne Soga of South Florida. Had a 3-point showing for the Bulls as they cooled off Memphis in 2-1 in conference play. All 3 of Soga's shot attempts against the Tigers found frame, which included the match's first goal to help the Bulls off to a 1-0 advantage, and also later subbed up the primary assist to Ben Kaplan on the match-winning goal. Defensive Player of the Week, 10 Zinhart of Tulsa. A successful shift in completing their victory over Temple. Their defense only allowed 4 shots, total shots, 3 on goal. And he chipped in on the offensive side, scoring his first goal of the season in the match-winning tally. Goalkeeper of the Week, Kazuna Takasi of South Florida, is the conference top weekly goalkeeper, once again at 8 saves against Memphis. And the Rookie of the Week, Ben Kaplan of South Florida, got his first career goal in that victory. His only shot attempt in his full 90 minutes of playing time, finding the net there. Volleyball, defending American champion UCF keeps its league momentum rolling as they had a pair of road matches in the win column last week. Their current winning streak now at 3, and they stand atop the standings at 7-1. The Offensive Player of the Week, Rachel Wolf of SMU, as they had a 2-0 showing against conference competition, ranked 4th in the American with a .432 hitting percentage and 7th in the conference, 4.50 points per set. The Defensive Player of the Week, Narissa Moravich of UCF, as she had a conference best 2 blocks per set in a pair of sweeps for the Knights, chipped in a .500 hitting percentage and 11 kills over the weekend. Cross country, I should say. The Men's Athlete of the Week is Peyton Gleason of Memphis. He cruised with the individual win in the men's 8K gold race at the UAB Blazer Classic in Hoover, Alabama. Powered the Tigers to a third-place team showing at the meet, a gold medal time of 24:23.5 on the course at Veterans Park, and logging a 4:54.4 average mile split. And the Women's Athlete of the Week, Yasmin Wright of Wichita State, her third Athlete of the Week citation of the year, picking up a third individual race win in the competitive field at the Bradley Pink Classic in Peoria, Illinois. Took the individual title of the women's red race at the Newman Golf Course with a 6K time of 20:35.6, and that mile split was 5:31.4 in the victory. And that'll do it for this week's show. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. And as always, follow the Nightline Sports Network at UCF_Nightline. This has been the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.